It's been more than a decade now since the two main extreme metal genres, death metal and black metal, sort of stopped mattering for a whole swath of new bands. They blurred together. Riffs were no longer what distinguished these genres. Nowadays it's all about intention, feeling, mood and attack. It's not just death and black metal as well, you can load doom in there too. Now, Malthusian are one such band for whom such easy categorisation is very, very far from the point. They're one of these bands that has blended together all of those genres into something that's blacker, darker and deeper than either one of them alone would suggest. And as they prepare to let loose their new album, Across Deaths, this is their podcast. It's episode 48 of the Metal Insight podcast from Metalireland with me, Earl Grey. Before we start, just a few things quickly. Cruachan have their 25th anniversary show coming up this weekend with Skyclad and Waylander in support. That's at the Button Factory on Saturday night. You can still get tickets from eventbrite.ie. So I think it's good to say we raise a jar to them for their impressive innings. 25 years, no mean feat, and a load of fans all over the world and a rich history that they have. So 25 years of Cruachan. That's at the Button Factory this weekend. In Belfast, there's something I want to tell you about. There's a new comedy club in town from the Limelight, at the Limelight 2, in fact, in association with Magners, the cider. That's every Thursday night, and that features Shane Todd as MC, and I can tell you he's a pretty funny guy. I've seen him before, and you're guaranteed to laugh with Shane. He's always worth a watch. So that's every Thursday night at the Limelight 2. Thanks for sticking through that, but back to now the podcast, where it is safe to say that Malthusian can pretty thoroughly wipe the smile off your face. So we have Matt Bree and Andy Cunningham from the band here for this episode. Many of you will know Andy from giving so much to Metalireland over the years in the form of reviews, interviews. He's always digging out cool bands and stuff that none of the rest of us know about. So I guess I just want to thank him for that, but also say it's maybe his time to shine, as it were, with his band Malthusian. So he and Matt Bree are here. And I began by putting it to them that the new album, Across Deaths, it really goes off the deep end, way past where both the demo, the self-release and Below the Hengiform left off. In fact, it actually makes those releases seem kind of straightforward.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think that's what we were trying to get with the EP, with Below the Hengiform. What's it called? Below the Hengiform. And somehow didn't get that at all. It kind of ended up, in retrospect, getting kind of muddy and flat sounding. But so I think that kicked us up the arse this time to not fucking take any kind of half measures with it, you know what I mean? So when we were working on the mix, first of all, with James, and because he'd recorded it, and we couldn't seem to get it right. And I think that's as much our fault, because we didn't really have a clear picture in our head of how we wanted it to sort of be. Although we were throwing around ideas, and they were all fucking different. Every idea was the opposite of the last one, but it just didn't seem to come together. And like, one mix would sound great on one song, and then across the album would just sound really flat or something. So after a lot of fucking hair pulling and screaming and fucking throwing wobblers left, right and centre, and then just going into radio silence for a bit, we kind of regrouped and said, right, let's send the song over to Phil Kassabs, and we'll see what he can do with it. And he sent us back one song mixed, and it was a rough mix, but it just immediately fucking woke us up again and snapped us back into the game and excited us. And it sounded so fucking vicious that we were like, right, this is the job. We sent it all to him, and there was still work to do. It was a lot of fucking, back and forth to get it where we got it. But yeah, I mean, we just wanted to have that balance of it being absolutely fucking savage and wild, but also being dynamic and, like, when there's changes, we always have loads of sort of changes in rhythms and all the rest of it, like, from really chaotic fast shit to kind of almost groovy bits, like, while still trying to keep it dark, and then like into fucking doom stuff and all the rest of it, and wonky bits. but somehow the first mixes were kind of, there was all these changes going on, but none of it was really jumping out. But then when we got those new mixes on it, it just all kind of came to life. You know.
Well, help us out. Who is Phil, and what has he done? How did you find him?
Phil plays in Blasphemy. He was in Cali and Oracle. He played in Diocletian when they were over here in 2010. So there was a good few interactions, and as well as his resume, it speaks for itself. You know, it's that filth that, as I say, it was just he knew exactly what we were going for. And as Andy was saying earlier on, there was a lot of it that we didn't know what we wanted, but we knew what we didn't want.
Yes.
So we're tough to deal with because we're just contradictions in our ideas towards that, because we're just uneducated in that sort of avenue.
Do you know that's a really important point, because if you were to listen to you know, when you have a producer with a head screwed on, you know, there's mic track mix and stuff like that, right? And I suppose what he would say would be the bands that come in with a clear idea, no matter what genre, no matter how intense or how rocky, whatever, the band comes in with a focused idea of who they are and what they're about. They're the ones that sound great. But actually, you guys are a collage, you know, of ideas, and a sort of jumble of ideas that actually, it's quite a technical challenge and a conceptual challenge for a producer to, number one, weave the sonic imprint of the songs together, but to get you guys to do that among yourselves.
We're awkward, you know, and I mean, we kill each other as well, like, you know, when we're jamming, when we're writing songs, we fucking kill each other, but that's how the sound comes together. But then, of course, we all have different ideas, and particularly myself, Matt and Johnny, are combative when it comes to putting forth our own kind of ideas. So there's a lot of conflict there, which is probably a head fuck to deal with for someone who's trying to mix it, because we'd be roaring over each other, fucking killing each other, and then somehow through all that madness we hear something and it just shuts us up, and we go, yeah, that's it. And then we just know, you know.
Through all the back and forth, there's an understanding between us that when it does come to it, it might take a small bit to move to someone's idea, but when you rattle it out of it, then it just sort of comes together very nicely. It's the fun of it, the fight.
Yeah.
One of the things I really, really liked about it, I think Johnny's drum production is absolutely spot on. It's a great tonality, and the drums have a real voice. And I love the start of Across the Expanse. Just that, those tom notes are really, really something. And then, you know, the texture and the tone of the drumming are really something in that track in particular.
Yeah, he writes, like, the way that man plays drums is out of this world. Yeah. He's got synesthesia to a certain degree, which is mental in itself. But the way he writes drums is like riffs in itself, which is like, he'll tell us that something needs to be a different shade, like, you know.
Wow.
He's a fucking genius.
But that's it. Yeah, he, like the whole idea of like drum riffs is a good point, because I mean, he does, like, you know, if you listen to, obviously there's parts where it's simple blasting, that's what it needs, but if you listen to a lot of it, there's a lot of nuance in there, like, you know, say the opening riff of Telluric Tongues, the last song, I mean, he's playing this piston style fucking stoppy starty blast where he's going on, the riff is morphing and changing, and his beats are changing with it. He's not just keeping time, he's moving with every sort of change and flow, and it just really kind of, I think it makes every change kind of jump out that much more. Like every sort of nuance, as I said, kind of just comes to the fore, because he just pushes everything. He doesn't just sort of sit back and sort of like, oh, I'll just blast here, or I'll do double fucking kicks here, or I'll do a little roll here. he maps it out. Like, you could almost, if you get lost in a song, you just listen to what he's doing. You go, oh yeah, it's that fucking riff, because he's almost playing the riff on the drums. You know,
it's fun. The drums.
That, you know,
the drums are almost a conversation, aren't they?
The what? Sorry.
The drums are a conversation.
Yeah. They're kind of. There's that sort of. I suppose they're communicating with each other. You know, trying to, like, even between the guitars. You know, sometimes the riffs are kind of veering off from each other and coming back, and the drums are kind of doing their thing, but it's sort of locked in a warped kind of way. You know,
it reminded
sometimes
me
really rigid, sometimes a bit more kind of spacey or whatever. You know,
it reminded me a lot of well, not really, but the approach, I suppose. You know, that last Satyricon record, the way Frost was playing on it was just so. It was almost like the drumming was like breathing.
Next question.
Why do you not like it?
I heard one song and I actually thought it was alright. But
I like the artwork.
I like the artwork too, though everyone else hated it. But I like Edvard Munch. No, I don't know, because I haven't really listened to it. So
yeah, the other comparison that I was going to make was actually one of the things you flagged up some years back, Andy, which was Botanist. I think there's a lot of that organic, weird drumming, you know.
Yeah, just, you know, like, it's, yeah, Botanist, I suppose, has so much more going on because it's really fucking busy. But I see what you mean. Johnny's like, he knows when to be really busy and when to add in a fucking maximum amount of stuff, you know.
Yeah. And
he knows when to pull it back and let the riffs just breathe and let the atmosphere seep in. And I suppose that's what we always try. Like, the songs have to have that dynamic. Yeah. If they're all just blasting start to finish, we'd be bored out of our shite, never mind anyone else.
Yeah.
And if they were all kind of, you know, we tried to just keep the songs moving, and like it's weird because we never sort of, apart from maybe the Gloom Epoch, which it wasn't so much mapped out, it was just more of an idea that we wanted to do something doomy for that. So we wanted to do one big doomy fucking song, so we did that. But otherwise, we kind of we start with a riff, and then we just see where it goes, and we just work it, and we chop things up and move them around until we get some sort of flow that it just instinctively kind of feels complete. When you, like, sometimes you're like, we're close, but it's not quite there, and it needs another bit of tweaking, and we kind of all know when it just sort of lands into the right spot, you know.
I mean, on that note, how would you answer a criticism that there is a sort of slight jumble quality to parts of it, which I know part of which is deliberate, but as you say, you know, that there's a lot of changeability in any one song. You're doing 30 different things, aren't you? You know.
It's for a lazy comparison to Botanist, there's an organic feel to it, like, and it just sort of, when we're doing it, we know these bits when they sit. So if a riff goes on for so long, we know that's too long, and in and out of it and stuff like that.
I think we're easily bored or something.
Yeah, just a bunch of fucking lunatics, like. But there's definitely, I don't know how intentional it is, but we are messy people in general, and that does come out in the music. Like, take for example, recording. I mean, the song I mentioned there, the Gloom Epoch, the Doom one. Myself and Matt, we recorded all the guitar parts for the album together, in a little room at the same time. So if one of us fucked up, we stopped, we went back to the start. But I mean, most takes of every fucking song were like maybe max 3, maybe max 4 at the tops. I can't even think. But that song, I think we done the second run through, maybe the first run. It was the first,
the very first run through.
There was
really
people there.
There were people there.
Yeah, there was people there, so we wanted to get it done. Plus, after playing so much technical shit, going back to playing a Doom song is like, right, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah,
we fucking dropped in at the start, and we played it through without a single fucking stop.
And kept that, like.
And kept it going, and just, we were happy with it. And like, I mean, we're not the kind of band we're not the kind of guitarists anyway who sit there and like record 20 fucking takes of a song, of a riff, until you can't see straight anymore and you're sick to death of it.
We're fucking lazy.
We're lazy. Yeah. We are lazy, but we're kind of maybe it's more impatient than lazy. We want to keep the thing moving, and like we'd rather kind of just get the feel right. We're happy with that. It's a bit it's not perfect. You could probably sit there and tweak it to death.
We like the mistakes. We like the squeaks.
Yeah.
Fuck ups.
Well, that's real. Exactly, it's character, it's real. I mean, one of the
you do hear some weird harmonics here and there, and you're going, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I don't remember that, or that's not part of the song, but it is now. I don't know what the hell it is, but it sounds cool and it's part of it. So
well, I was going to ask you about that in particular in Sublunar Hex. I thought, okay, right, you've kind of, this is where it kind of really goes off the deep end with the kind of guitar squiggles that happen about the halfway mark, somewhere like that. You know, it really does get quite dense and quite challenging with it. It's not a guitar solo as such. It is part of the sort of licks, isn't it?
But that was actually a lot more prominent, and it would just, there's more going on there. It just got sank in the mix, and when we got it back, we were just going, right, yeah, well, that bit is, it just sounds cool there that it is coming in and out.
It's adding more kind of a stretchy wonkiness rather than a defined solo-y kind of thing. You have to go
searching for it.
You do. You have to go searching. That's exactly it.
It's the kind of idea we've talked about, I think, when we were talking about the last one, like the sort of what's the word? Like hallucinogenic kind of buzz, you know, and like it's kind of it's not solid. It's kind of slipping away. Everything's kind of slipping away and kind of becoming porous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not that concrete anymore, and then it pulls back together. And like that's kind of, it's just again playing with dynamics and keeping it interesting for ourselves, really.
Your language is funny, man. Because did you not have? Was there not a track in the last one talking about gaseous? What was your track?
The gasless billows.
The gasless billows. I mean, I can totally see what you mean. There's a sort of lava-like quality where things aren't static. But this one makes Below the Hengeform actually sound quite straight ahead.
The thing, weirdly enough, as well about that and it being gasless, we'd gone into that one and we decided we'd try it to a click track, and it's just fuck it. We went through it a few times and it just wasn't there. It didn't seem right. So then we just dropped the click track because we've never practiced to a click track. It's weird. And then we played gasless through once, and Ola that was doing it, he goes, no, that's it, because we swell and we go back in and it's our sort of just symbiosis, like that.
Yeah, it's not precise. It's kind of natural.
We know when we're going to go just from jamming and whatnot, like, you know.
Tell me about, so Primal Attunement, right? What is all that cello or violin stuff in there? What's going on?
That's causing from Lynched, I'm called Lancome.
Yeah.
So, we'd all be mates. Johnny used to live with Lyncher. I've been mates with Dara for a good few years, and I know Cozzy and Rady then when they joined. So Cozzy's always been a big fan. They'd be playing solo gigs in Vicar Street and he's wearing a fucking Malthusian t-shirt.
Yeah.
So we had the idea of it anyway, and then when Cozzy came out and he laid down, like he came out with loads of ideas, you know, he was ready to go, he put effort into this, whereas we were sort of going, I wonder what he'd do. So he laid down a load of tracks in different styles with different, he brought his own mic, he had all this fucking...
He had a viola and a violin.
Yeah, and he's doing different picking styles and stuff, and he laid down, like, which was beautiful respite after blasting through for days.
Yeah.
He comes out and you listen to this and disappear into it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was initially supposed to be for the end, and then Phil just he said himself he didn't know what to do with it, so he just lumped it in after that chuggy change at the end of just before that whole end section, and dropped it in there just out of not knowing what the fuck are these lads on about putting this stuff in, and we were like, that's perfect. And it just, it's insane,
because it kind of has its own kind of it's moving to its own kind of rhythm or whatever. It's kind of swelling in and out of what we're doing.
Shanty, seasick.
I mean, it's kind of it respects what we're doing, but it does its own kind of thing, and it's not sort of following the drums. I think the idea initially was that with the Doom thing, I was kind of really thinking about like fucking Turn Loose the Swans.
Oh yeah,
to sort of capture something of that starkness and that real fucking musty kind of vibe, you know. So naturally, then I was like, oh, geez, a bit of fucking violin would go well there. But of course, then, you know, you ask someone. Well, our ethos would be like, if you ask someone to do a guest spot on something, you don't fucking go and tell them, I want you to do this, that, and the other. You sort of go, this is what we're doing, and this is what we have in mind. Please do something really interesting and bring their creativity into it, and that's what he did. And
given he's a fan of the band, we didn't have to tell him that much.
We just said do something, like we want something kind of, you know, that has a creaky sort of vibe, you know, and we didn't have. And it was kind of perfect, you know.
It's hard. It's hard not to be swayed, because I guess, Andy, you know, because you're so sort of you know, vocal and sharing about, you know, stuff you like at any one time. It's hard not to read things into it that maybe aren't there. But when I heard the sort of the kind of madcap voices that are going on all around that track, I did immediately think of Malak Paratan as well, just with these strange, ghoulish little goblin-y voices, you know, wailing and gnashing in the background. But maybe I'm just hearing something that isn't there.
I think that might be we'd be fans of that anyway. Yeah. Andy probably more so. I love it, especially that second album. I think is amazing. Yeah. I would have it wasn't intentional, but afterwards I think the last Cut to Ghouls is definitely more, and Mark his vocals are out of this fucking world, literally and figuratively, like, you know. And there is cello and stuff like that in that, so afterwards you see the comparison to that more so. But I think always we want to go for that weird and fucked up thing. I think the vocals on this are absolutely insane. While the mix was sounding like shit, the vocals were the thing that you're just going, yeah, this is class, like.
We actually re-recorded all the vocals. We recorded them initially on the last day of the studio with James, and the night before when we were recording fucking Gloom Epoch, and Dara and Tony showed up with a bottle of whiskey or scotch or whatever.
Two litre bottle, like.
So we kind of left that to the side, and then the day we were doing the vocals, myself, Park, and Matt fucking rake of cans, like a couple of slabs of beer, and then crack into the scotch. So the three of us were fucking bananas drunk before we even started. Started howling. Things just got out of hand. We hadn't fucking practiced the vocals at all and didn't really know what we were doing. And we went in and fucking went mental.
It ended up being a glorified scratch track.
It was it was ridiculous, because the more pissed we got, we were kind of riling each other up to be ridiculous, and like there was all sorts of maniacal cackles, like King Diamond shit that was getting out of hand.
We kept one of them, I think.
Okay. But then, but through all that, we listened back to it, and it was just shit. It was messy. It was all over the place. There was no structure to it, bar here and there. But there were a couple of pieces that were like, this works. So we'll have to maybe refine it a little bit, and then we kind of worked a little bit on structuring the vocals, and we booked in with Shawnee Katz and went into him and Son's studio for a day. And
I'd like to point out I didn't drink that day.
I'd like to point out that I was fucking gimped, but we managed to do it somehow, and it actually sounded, the vocals, I think, are the best on any of the things we've done.
They are,
all over the place.
Listen, tell me this: you're a sort of victim of your own style in some regards. You have made albums or releases that ask the listener to really step into a bit of a world, much like, you know, you've got Cathalist or Portal or you know, any of the new, you know, sort of Crickscore.
We can't play guitar like them people.
No, indeed. But what I'm saying is the last time I saw you guys live, I happened to be standing in the right place, and I was very grateful for it, because I could make out stuff that was going on. But I noticed that when I moved to a different place, it was hopeless, you know, because I was in a mush. So it very much depended on the luck of the draw where you were. So when because you do a lot of live stuff, you know, how conscious are you that you are in a way a victim of the style more so than a bunch of ordinary bands?
Not at all.
Not at all. Because we're fucking retarded.
Plug and play retard.
Yeah, okay. All right.
It's just,
I mean, that's the same engineer's fucking problem. If we can hear ourselves on stage and we don't fuck up too much, that's our job done.
Yeah.
And it's up to him to make it sound good. But I mean, we can't, like, normally we don't have, well, when we do the sound check, we'll walk up, we'll plug in.
It's a line check.
We'll blast through very quickly. We'll be in and out in like fucking 10 minutes max.
Yeah.
So I mean, we kind of have to trust that the sound engineer knows what he's doing. I mean, so we're not these sort of precious people who kind of go and plug in. They spend fucking 45 minutes to an hour. Each person stepping out into the middle of the room and walking around and listening for everything. It's like, man, that's not our fucking job, you know. No, we're here to play songs, and the sound engineer is getting paid to fucking do his job. Yeah. So if he doesn't do it right,
it also eats into our drinking.
Well, indeed. You know, for all this talk, all the layering and all the, you know, the depth at the same time, you know, you think of at the end there of Across the Expanse. I mean, that's pure good old school Angel Corpse speed. You know, at the end of that, it's total heavy metal. It's not difficult.
Yeah, I don't think any of it. Well, like. I find Andy's riffs difficult because it's his style, and he finds the same with mine. But there's nothing that we do that is overly technical. We just love fucking straightforward riffs. Be it Angel Corpse, I'd be Inexorable was one of the fucking albums.
Do you know what? I still listen to Storm Gods like any time. It cannot be better, do you know? It's just so. I remember, you know, in Hexed, we just spent so much time over that album. It was an outrage. But you got it. I mean, the other thing I guess is that you now have, you know, the respect of your peers kind of internationally. The demo obviously solidified that, and then Hengiform did so well with that. You know, after that, what? I suppose, you know, you've got a new one coming. But what is it that you want out of this other than to just please yourselves, which is the common answer for everybody? But what do you want out of it?
It'd be nice to kind of get some offers for tours and gigs and stuff, and we're working on stuff at the moment for next year. Obviously, this year bitches and money. This year, the rest of the year is kind of out. We were supposed to be doing a week-long European tour in September for the release with Triumvirate Fell. Yeah. But one of the dudes got a new job and couldn't take the time off, and that was the end of that. And we were kind of trying to salvage that tour for a while, but it seemed like too much mess, and I was like, no, let's just leave it, come back to it fresh in the new year, do something, arrange something with a band that we like really want to fucking tour with, that we think would be a good lineup for people to go and see. So
there's also been the amount of time that's passed. Like, so the last 2 years, Forrest, given the first two releases, and we were fucking flown around the place and playing in these amazing bills, like, you know, and then everything just died down because, understandably enough, I don't know if it was hype or what, or, you know, so it did sort of wane off, which gave us also time to put the head down right, rather than, because we've all got life to put up with. Yeah. So to get us all together and stuff like that wasn't as easy, because every time you're getting together, you're practicing the set to play live. Yeah. Which gives no time for writing. So it was just.
And I imagine Johnny's a man in demand as well.
More so now. With Conan, it's gone off the charts, and he deserves everything he gets, because, like, a man that has perfected his art like that, you know, he deserves to reap the benefits.
It's funny. I think Napalm are really putting a lot behind them at the moment. It's really good to see, you know.
Oh, I'm heading out. Yeah, I'm heading over to Melbourne, as I was saying to you earlier, in November, and they're playing while we're over there. So that'll be a bit of madness seeing him playing to like a foreign audience, and a Padden are playing over there 2 days before that again. So it's going to be some fucking.
The Paddy's going the piss. Yeah,
so shocked.
Andy, I was just thinking of your sort of present job, you know, with Malthusian, but I just was thinking of your own, you know, path over the years, because I remember, you know, right from State Pathologist through to Wreck-It Hesperus and stuff, and I just remember, do you remember that gig we did at Christmas? And I remember you guys were on, and I remember kind of like the lights swirling red, and seeing you sing and stuff with Wreck at that time. It was so immersive, that gig that night. I don't know, it just caught something. I always thought, maybe I'm just saying that because I have a fond memory of it, but you know, I really think it did. But you know, when you think back toward all the stuff you've done, I mean, do you think Malthusian's the top of things at the minute, or do you look back to State Pathologist and Wreck-It stuff?
Well, like, I suppose the way I'd see it is everything's kind of and you can't really compare things. Like, because everything has its own sort of agenda, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like Malthusian has its own agenda, and now because it's kind of taken off in, you know, a small way, whatever way it is, it's kind of taken off. Obviously, that's kind of the main focus, and that takes up most of your time and your focus, which is cool. Wreck of the Hesperus is kind of in a dormant state at the moment, and I imagine we'll probably fucking do something again when the time is right. But
when the tides are low.
When the tides are low, yeah. But that had its own sort of thing, and it was like, obviously it was the extreme end of kind of sludgy funereal doom or whatever the fuck it was, and it was far more. There were maybe less restrictions on it because we kind of veer out into other ways in ways that we wouldn't with Malthusian, because with Malthusian we kind of like I think it's experimental or not that it's experimental. It's more that we've set a wider kind of remit for ourselves. We've got Black Death and Doom, which keeps things really fucking wide open as far as what we can do. I wouldn't have been interested in putting fast stuff into Wreck of the Hesperus, or you know, but then I'd have been more open to putting noisy mad shit in there, whereas with Malthusian, nah, not really. And now with this new thing I've got going on, Bacterium with Ray, that's kind of got another set of rules like that heads it off in a sort of different direction, and that's kind of it. You know, I think with each project you have to kind of put up some sort of definite goals and boundaries, because like when you've too much to choose from, there's no focus. But I think once you set some sort of boundaries, then you can be really expressive and creative as you are as a fucking individual, I suppose, within those boundaries. And like death metal and black metal at the moment are probably the most creative. They're wide open. They're the most creative fucking genres. They probably have been for a long time.
I think boundaries have all but dissolved actually at this point in time, which is fantastic. You know, it's great.
Well, that's true. Yeah, for better and worse. For better and worse, I think. You know, for better with the good bands, for worse with bands that are just kind of vague and kind of they're a bit of this and a bit of that, but they're a bit nothing in the end of it and hypey kind of shite. You know what I mean? But like, and maybe we are if you ask someone.
So that was the Metal Insight podcast, episode 48 from Metalireland.com. If you like what you hear, help us out and leave us a review. You can check out our channels on iTunes or YouTube. Leave us a review, it all helps, as long as it's 5 stars. You can go through those channels to get all sorts of other interesting episodes. Some of the best ones, if you're into Malthusian, some of the best ones you might like would be Damien from Cradle of Filth. He goes through their history from the time he was on the Duskiner Embrace album. Vikotnik from Dotheimsgard, a really, really, really great chat I would encourage you to listen to. Steve Von Till, Yob, the list goes on. Check out the stream. Anyway, good luck to Cruachan for their show on Saturday night. Thanks again to the Limelight for keeping our lights on. Till next time, I'm Earl Grey, and this is the Metal Insight Podcast. Thanks for listening.